Hello and welcome to the Predictive AI World Forum, your one-stop shop for everything AI and sales. In this latest edition of our webinars, we will be talking about how to break the barrier, and will address the begging question about why traditional quarterly business reviews don't work. My name is Malay Upadhyay. I'm your host and the Chief Customer Experience Officer at SalesChoice. And for those of you who are new to this platform, the predictive AI world brings together industry leaders from across North America and beyond to speak about the latest in AI and sales and how these two worlds come together. For more information, educational material, and thought leadership content, please visit our website at saleschoice.com/resources. Or you can visit one of these three links on your screen to check out our other webinars, podcasts, and video library. So without further ado, starting with our session tonight, we are joined here by Dr. Cindy Gordon, the CEO and founder of SalesChoice, and Steve Levy, who is the executive sales advisor at SalesChoice, and it's an absolute privilege to have him. And we are about to find out the wealth of knowledge he brings, as well as the value that he has seen in the platform that can set you on course to beat your numbers in this quarter, regardless the climate. So before we go into an introduction with him, let me bring in Cindy to say a quick hello.
Thanks, Malay. Delighted to be here. And Steve, as always, really looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you, Cindy. And Steve, if you could quickly say a few words about yourself to our audience.
30 years and 30 seconds, happy to. And thank you for having me. It's exciting to be here today and to be participating in what I believe is the next evolution of tools for people who are responsible for guiding companies on where they're going and how they're going to get there. My 30 years, I've seen everything from startups to the Oracles of the world. I've worked in high tech for over 25 years, managing sales teams globally. I have also had the privilege of being part of the beginning of renewable energy, moving from my high tech days. So I've had a cross section of a pretty diverse area of experiences, but the one thread that never changed were these quarterly meetings where we all get together and had the experience of trying to convince not only yourself, but your executive teams of the control and the quality you had on the data or the forecast accuracy. And my experiences over the years was I saw a lot of great improvements in databases and reporting tools. God bless Microsoft and Excel, because I think most of us know that we always had to tweak it through there. But one day I was introduced to SalesChoice, and I started to see something that was revolutionary in an evolving tools marketplace with AI and machine learning. And when I came across their platform, I started to see how we could take a very difficult process and let the tools and the intelligence behind the architecture manage the future, so that we could then sit in front of an audience and not only tell the story of what happened, but tell the story about what's about to happen, which is really what a QBR should be focused on, a quarterly business review.
Thanks, Steve. Really great to have you here with us. And you're right, the amount of waste that goes into these QBRs, and being a former Xerox leader as well, you know, how much effort, when in fact, the data, if obviously it's complete, and we can be confident, you know, with overlays like AI, it can be very powerful because there's a lot of history that has patterns that can actually predict the future. So do tell us more about why you're so intrigued with what we do, and it's just so great to have you on our podcast today.
Well, thank you, Cindy, and again, happy to be here. This has been a 30-year quest of mine to find, you know, a tool, a platform, a company like SalesChoice, and Wish I would have seen you about 25 years ago, and my life would have been a lot different in those meetings. Resources and results, in my opinion, are a big challenge when you're preparing for a quarterly business review in a private or public company, regardless of size. You know, the relevance and the importance of that session drive companies' decisions based on their investments going forward, based on what is going to be discussed. And it's two pieces for the sales team, the sales leader. They have to talk about what happened the previous quarter, and then they have to talk about what is about to happen. The postmortem is usually known. The audience already knows what happened. They just want to see that the leadership has a handle on, you know, why the predictions of the previous quarter didn't happen or didn't happen fully. And so it gets back right to the tools. You know, we're dealing in an era where companies like a Salesforce.com have a great database, but they themselves would tell you that reach out to our partners to build the analytics and drive, you know, a higher level of efficiency as you look at sales leadership roles and reporting requirements. It's really lacking in the sense of traditional tools as to where I believe SalesChoice is clearly a leader in this quadrant. Having the machine learning and the artificial intelligence to get to that, if you will, pipeline to forecast accuracy, it starts to get into kind of that deeper dive and trustworthiness that this is a platform, this is a tool that you can now decrease the amount of resources that you're driving your team and certainly yourself to prepare for these meetings, but also that you're achieving a higher level of success based on the focus that SalesChoice allows you to have going into the next period, the next quarter. And I think that's the differentiator. I think that's what I saw initially with SalesChoice, and clearly today, what I think they're offering. And you know, you can't take away from the fact that when you've got to do $10 in the next quarter, you have to really understand your pipeline multiple. And I thought SalesChoice was one of the few tools that I have seen recently that really understands the importance of that, and then to break that down into a qualitative analysis so that when you make the decision on how you're going to get there, that you're using something that has the ability to take subjectivity out of the equation. You know, who's your best sales rep, who's your best marketing person, and put objectivity into it based on the intelligence that AI and machine learning bring to the table. Okay.
Steve, thanks. You know, it's hard not to reminisce, and you know, you're talking about the intensity in those QBR reviews, and I certainly recall at Xerox the number of messages that we had to receive to, you know, really increase our data, updating things, then multiple cross references, and the discounting that was going on. And the amount of time it always took us away from focusing on what was really important, is talking to a real customer. And, you know, one of the things that I think we've been trying to be quite vigilant here in building this product was to say, could we actually prioritize everything, much like Uber takes you to the right destination, you know, and you know you can with confidence get there. Could we, with AI, start to prioritize all of those opportunities to really help you know, our sales professionals succeed? So if you could talk a little bit about, you know, the dynamics and coverage and how those bouncing balls, you know, don't always level out in terms of success ratios.
Happy to, Cindy. And by the way, the use of that analogy with Uber really brings this thing together nicely, because that Uber driver is being driven by a GPS system. So he or she knows that they're going to get from point A, the pickup of the customer, to point B, the drop off of that customer, and it works. Not always perfect, but it works to a very high degree of predictability. When you said that, it really resonated with me, because it's something we haven't had in the pipeline to forecast analysis and really pointing the resources, those valuable resources. And it's not just the sales team. you have a marketing team that's also directing the sales force in from a geo perspective or a vertical perspective, because that company's products and services are starting to show patterns. But it's still driven by traditional databases and traditional reports that people have to make more or less gut level decisions on versus objective decisions on. That patterns developed inside those databases can be brought to the surface truly objectively by the AI and machine learning capabilities of a platform like SalesChoice. You know, I think of the precious gems that you have as a sales leader to be able to direct your team and to focus your team and to tell them that, you know, this is a key indicator of where we're going as a company, and here's why. But they know, and you know, that every quarter we come up usually a little short or way over. And by the way, way over is not always good. If you're building product, not a software company, but if you're building product and you're building work in process models, you are highly dependent upon that forecast. So if you blow it and you have a great sales quarter, you're going to have upset customers because you didn't build enough into the supply chain and certainly through the work in process and the inventory ultimately to ship to that client in a timely fashion. So, you know, it works both ways. And, you know, that was the one thing, in my opinion, that we never really had. So from a trustworthiness, you know, you're up there presenting to your board of directors, your executive team. The trust factor was definitely something that was in the back of my mind, because I'm trying to build trust. But I know that I'm trusting a sales force to do what they said they're going to do based on models that, quite frankly, were not objective, and they had gut level decisions being made at the front lines through the marketing team. And certainly in some cases, if you have engineers, your sales engineers are also being deployed perhaps at the wrong target. Maybe, you know, because we believe the sales team was truly on top of that particular next quarter's objectives. You know, we trusted them to say, I need to have these two accounts be the primary. So you're going to put the best and brightest from marketing and sales engineering and the sales team on those particular accounts. The old saying, are you going to bet your career on it? That's real. That's something that actually happens in those meetings. And it trickles down. So you have the same meeting with your sales team, and that comment is made. I've made it. I've been asked that question. And it's a difficult question to answer when you're dealing with what I would call the traditional tools, the relational database that behaves more like a flat database because you still have to put subjectivity through it or drive the information to kind of a empirical model that you are comfortable with, but do you have the trust? And again, as you're going to see through SalesChoice and the demonstration of the product, you're going to have the ability to start to see this come to life right in front of your eyes. You will see what I saw, and you will see the ability to take subjectivity through the AI machine learning capabilities of SalesChoice and drive this down now to where you can direct marketing, you can direct your sales team and your sales engineers in the right direction with a high level of confidence.
Steve, you know, the drama that we're continuing to talk about in our QBRs, and that's obviously a religion. It's almost a religion in organizations. And one of the things that I think we worked really hard on was focusing the need to prioritize. You know, we live in this very distracted world. So one of our first design premises was to say, okay, you know, there are patterns within the data, and could we actually classify them and rank them into the most significant patterns? And hence we've developed ABC. It's very simple, right? You know from school that an A is usually a better opportunity than a C. And that's what we've done in our software. So you can very easily filter out the specific opportunities that have the highest rankings. And also in Salesforce or any you know, pipeline, we always put in a different percentage across, you know, and customize our sales gates. But we all know that, you know, if it's a net new renewal, my odds of closing that are probably, you know, 90% with a really strong base client versus a net, you know, a new account that I'm actually chasing. So the science can figure that all out, right? So that all of those dynamics can be predetermined with math to actually predict the outcomes. So, you know, that's effectively what we've done. So we expose very rapidly all the opportunities and, you know, their rankings. The next piece of the puzzle, of course, is the coaching enablement side, Steve, for you to comment on. I've noticed that, you know, that one thing is prioritizing opportunities to give guidance to sales professionals to where spend their time. And, you know, a high performing rep knows that sometimes they need to let go, because sometimes we gravitate toward people we really enjoy. But the reality is maybe the science will say that, you know, that opportunity is really a C, and yes, you're enjoying that conversation, but you're going to get to your plan. Don't forget your plan. You know, let's try and really close out all those A's. And that can be very, very hard, you know, for sales professionals to focus their time. So I wouldn't mind you know, a little bit of a conversation with you in terms of the dynamic of what science will say and will more often be right, versus the challenge and coaching enablement to get humans to really respond in the best way that the science is advising.
You know, Cindy, you're touching on something that, you know, if you think of a quarterly business review every 90 days, most sales teams meet on a weekly basis, the Monday sales call, the Friday close of week sales call, and you discuss these levels of where a certain opportunity in the pipeline or the forecast is currently sitting. And the person that sets that category, if you will, as an A, B, or C, in the case of SalesChoice, is the sales team. The sales rep will put a level of priority and their expectations based on their beliefs. And beliefs are not always data driven. They're personal, they're relationship driven, and that's okay. But when you look back at what the traditional systems do, they accept that. So when a sales team puts their own ABC spin on things, then you start mounting this. And what happens? Every week in the sales meeting, the runway gets shorter to the end of the quarter. That's a fact. And usually the reports don't change. And a sales team, the last thing they're going to want to do is something that you mentioned, let go. But if they had a tool that they could trust, that could help them prioritize properly to see who, from a predictive perspective, in their pipeline is truly a forecast in the current quarter, or even the next quarter, they can start aligning their focus and their time, their team, because they have a virtual team typically in a high-tech world, and sometimes not a high-tech world, it really doesn't matter, there's multiple players involved, then they too will benefit from that because they're not liking to have to go into those weekly meetings either. Trust me, nobody wants to be on a sales call. They're never fun unless you just closed a big contract. And you know, if you closed a contract that you forecasted for 2 consecutive quarters to close, how good is it? Because it was supposed to close, you know, 6 months ago. That happens. That's the reality of the tools we're using today, because there's too much subjectivity put into it, which builds a lack of trust at multiple layers within an organization.
Steve, yeah, if we could just close out, you know, the comment in the sense of we've lived through these different eras, right? We're in era 1, you know, with Siebel and some of the challenges that it had, and not that it wasn't there to serve a purpose, you know, it was really moving the value of data into a database. It was just a little bit too complicated. And where Salesforce came in to say we're going to reduce the pricing structures, cloud enabled, but it was a database and a workflow. And we've lived now for over 10 years of database structures. And, you know, we still have challenges in data completeness, sometimes Salesforce adoption, but we still have our QBR beat, right? That constant heartbeat. And, you know, so now we've got tools like SalesChoice, which basically guide you on the quality and the completeness of your data. And because it doesn't really matter what's in the database unless the completeness level is there and the amount of inspection. So that view is there. And then to your point about once you've got the data there and people are disciplined, you don't need to spend as much time on the QBRs. You know, you can confident get a prediction on any time frame, but also reprioritizes everybody's sales coverage. And so it sounds like kind of like nirvana. Do you think we're all ready for these kinds of enabling tools to guide you or do you think we have generations of leadership? I'm just curious in terms of your thoughts on, you know, what the future holds and the time and the speed, and also the implications for not getting an edge. You know, obviously with COVID, you know, everybody needs a faster edge to get to win, and maybe that will unlock more innovation and curiosity. Steve?
Difficult times with COVID, absolutely, and which kind of places a different level of focus on sense of urgency, in my opinion, because companies are going to be pretty much restarting or driving to restart. I want to go back to, you mentioned Tom Siebel, and I had the amazing luck, good fortune of being at the Oracle Corporation in the mid to late 90s, a 6-year run, where Tom Siebel, Mark Benioff were both there at that time. Tom obviously left Oracle, and he went on to build an amazing platform in the Siebel platform, which is ironically now back at Oracle through an acquisition. Mark Benioff, I think he was the first one that actually used the phrase the cloud and talked about it. And although I think he clearly saw where things were going, we weren't quite there yet. Nobody was willing to take that leap of faith. And I think it builds towards, you know, your comments just now about, you know, are we there? Is a business willing to take that next step? And I compare that to transportation. We're all watching, you know, companies like Tesla, Google, come up with these driverless cars and, you know, GPS-driven vehicles driving on our streets while you're crossing the corner. If you have the right of way as a human being to get in that crosswalk and you see a car coming at the red light without a driver, are you going to walk across the street? So trust again is the big issue. But getting back to the fundamental question of, are these new tools, the SalesChoice platforms of the world, are sales leaders ready to take on, you know, the risk, if you will, of stepping into a new fundamental era of decision making, and certainly that whole predictive analysis that, in my opinion, is revolutionary right now. My short answer is we've been waiting for this for a long time. I don't think there's a model out there that has been 100% accurate. I think most sales leaders would tell you that I've been lucky and I've been unfortunate, and the data has never really given me, or, you know, if you will, the collective audience, the confidence that quarter to quarter, I will start to see the consistency. And what happens? What happens when you've got a multi-year sales leader sitting at the top and trying to analyze where his or her sales team is going to take you, along with the marketing and engineering team? They downplay the forecast. They typically undersell the potential. Why? Because they want to be able to stand in front of the board and show how successful they were by undercutting the true potential. And the only reason they do that is because the tools, the traditional tools, coming out of the Salesforce.com database as an example, just aren't there yet, and they haven't been there. So you under forecast, and if you will, you make your numbers. So imagine what you could have done if you had a tool like SalesChoice that built that trustworthiness from the very beginning, so that from your sales teams to your marketing team, your engineering team, they're going up every day and touching those opportunities with a high confidence through this very simple but elegant ABC modeling, which is not subjective, it's objective through the SalesChoice platform.
Thanks, Steve. Well, really appreciate you being here with us today. Malay, closing comments?
Well, it's been inspiring, and we have achieved near 100% accuracy with more than one company. So it's always great to remember that in context of what you just said, Steve. Great thoughts and an excellent learning opportunity for everyone, and we are so glad that you could join us here today. For our viewers, just to quickly give you a rundown of SalesChoice. You saw some portions of what we do, what the Insight Engine brings to your table, but that's just skimming the surface. There's so much more that we can bring in to help you increase your top line revenue, your win rates, reduce your cost of sales, even get your data completeness and Salesforce adoption to near perfect levels. And all that is besides just the forecasting accuracy. We have even expanded to take care of your account relationships, including how to come at it in terms of matching personalities. So there's so much there to show you. And we would love to have a discussion with you if these are things that you're interested in and can solve your sales journeys. We have a bunch of AI recognitions that we've been lucky to garner, and that includes features by the leading analysts in the industry. And that just speaks to the pedigree of the explainable machine learning technology that we bring in thanks to a mix of algorithms that we have put into place as we have learned more and more. So once again, meanwhile, please feel free to visit our Predictive World forum at saleschoice.com/resources. There's a ton of excellent information out there for anyone who's curious and looking for creative ways to use AI and leverage it to improve your sales journeys. And of course, we also are part of AI Directory, which is a single repository for all the resources and stakeholders on the AI platform, something we launched in partnership with Kata Alliance and IT World Canada. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. You can always book a demo with us at saleschoice.com/contact us. It's a 15 minutes worth of investment on your part that can reap excellent dividends. On that note, thank you so much for joining us today. I would like to sign off by thanking Cindy. Of course, as always, pleasure to hear your questions and the discussions. And most importantly, our star of the show, Steve Levy. Thank you so much for being with us here today. It was truly a pleasure.
My pleasure.